Every time you open a social media app, a silent process begins inside your mind. A process so subtle and so carefully engineered that most people never realize it's happening. Your brain begins anticipating something before your eyes even see the first image. The possibility of reward, whether that reward comes in the form of a notification, a like, a message, or a piece of content that makes you laugh or feel understood. The expectation alone is enough to release a small burst of dopamine. It's not the reward itself that hooks you, but the anticipation of the reward. This anticipation is the first way social media rewires your mind. It teaches your brain to seek stimulation in short, rapid bursts, conditioning you to crave constant novelty. Over time, this craving becomes so ingrained that moments of silence feel uncomfortable, even threatening. You reach for your phone not because you want to, but because your brain has learned to expect something from it. This rewiring begins with one simple principle: unpredictability. Social media feeds are built on an unpredictable reward system, similar to a slot machine. Sometimes you get something funny, sometimes something shocking, sometimes something that triggers outrage, sometimes something that makes you feel validated. The inconsistency is the key. If every scroll brought the same result, you would get bored. But because each swipe is a gamble, your brain becomes trapped in a cycle of curiosity and reward. Scientists call this variable reinforcement, and it is one of the most powerful forms of psychological conditioning ever discovered. Your brain doesn't simply enjoy the reward, it becomes dependent on it. The more you scroll, the deeper the dependency becomes. Slowly, without realizing it, your mind adapts to this new rhythm of stimulation. The tolerance for slow, quiet moments begins to fade. Activities that require patience, like reading, studying, or having long conversations, start to feel harder. Your attention becomes fragmented. You jump from thought to thought, from feeling to feeling, because that's what the platforms have trained your mind to do. In a world designed for instant gratification, anything that requires effort feels like a burden. This is not a flaw in your discipline. It is a direct result of neuroplasticity, or brain physically rewiring itself to match the environment you use the most. But the impact goes deeper. As your brain becomes accustomed to high stimulation, your emotional responses begin to shift as well. Social media introduces you to an endless stream of other people's lives, thoughts, successes, problems, and opinions. Your brain was never designed to process the emotional weight of thousands of strangers every single day. In the past, you might have compared yourself to a handful of people, neighbors, co-workers, friends. Now, you compare yourself to millions. You see people who seem more successful, more attractive, more joyful, more talented. This constant comparison chips away at your self-image in small, almost invisible ways. Each time you see someone who appears to be living a better life, your brain subtly recalibrates what it thinks is normal. Over time, the standard becomes impossible to reach because it's no longer based on reality. This creates a psychological distortion. Your brain starts believing that everyone else is doing better than you. Even though you logically know that social media is curated, your emotional mind reacts to the images as if they were real. You don't see the failures, the insecurities, the behind-the-scenes moments. You only see the highlight reels, and yet part of you still feels inadequate, as if you're falling behind in a race you never agreed to join. This quiet feeling of inadequacy grows slowly, and it becomes a background noise in your mind. It doesn't scream, it whispers, but the whisper is constant. At the same time, social media fuels a different emotional response: outrage. Platforms discovered early on that negative emotions generate more engagement than positive ones. Posts that make you angry, shocked, or offended keep you online longer because strong emotions demand attention. Your brain instinctively focuses on threats, and outrage feels like a threat to your beliefs, your identity, or your worldview. This is why platforms push content that is divisive, controversial, or emotionally charged. The more emotionally invested you are, the longer you stay, and the more ads you see. Your attention becomes the fuel, and your emotions become the currency. Over time, your brain becomes more reactive. Instead of processing information calmly, you begin responding emotionally and instantly. You feel compelled to form opinions quickly, even about complex issues. The platforms push you to react, not to reflect. This reactivity creates a mindset where everything feels urgent and personal, even when it isn't. You might find yourself becoming more irritable or easily triggered without knowing why. Your brain has been conditioned to exist in a state of low-level emotional tension, constantly scanning for the next thing to react to. Another form of rewiring happens in the way your brain interprets social validation. Humans are naturally social creatures. We evolved to seek belonging, acceptance, and connection. Social media takes this instinct and amplifies it. Every notification, like, or comment becomes a tiny form of validation. At first, it feels harmless, maybe even uplifting, but gradually, your brain begins linking these digital metrics with yourself. If a post performs well, you feel good. If it doesn't, you feel oddly disappointed. You might catch yourself checking your phone more often, waiting for a number to go up. This is not vanity, it is conditioning. Your brain starts using external validation as a measure of internal value. The danger comes when the validation stops. If papli don't respond the way you expect, your brain interprets it as rejection. You might not consciously think you're being rejected, but emotional discomfort surfaces anyway. This pushes some people into cycles of posting more, trying harder, or altering themselves to match what performs well online. The line between identity and performance begins to blur. Instead of showing who you truly are, you start showing what gets attention. Over time, this can create a feeling of disconnection from your authentic self. You feel seen, but not known. The final form of rewiring is the fragmentation of your identity. On social media, you present different versions of yourself depending on the platform. Professional on one, humorous on another, emotional on another. Your brain switches between these identities repeatedly, and each version comes with its own expectations. This constant shifting creates psychological tension. You start to feel like multiple versions of yourself, none of which fully represent who you are. The mind struggles when identity becomes a performance rather than a reflection. At the same time, you're exposed to thousands of opinions from strangers every day. Your own beliefs, preferences, and values become influenced, sometimes subtly, sometimes dramatically. You might adopt ideas not because you truly believe them, but because the platforms repeatedly expose you to them. The more you see something, the more familiar it feels, and the more believable it becomes. This is known as the mere exposure effect. Your brain begins mistaking repetition for truth. Little by little, the boundaries of your independent thinking start to blur. This process does not happen all at once. It happens over months and years. One notification, one video, one scroll at a time. You may not feel different in any dramatic way, but subtle patterns begin forming. Decreased attention span, increased irritability, difficulty relaxing, compulsive checking, emotional comparison, and a persistent sense of mental restlessness. These patterns accumulate until they feel normal, and that's the most dangerous part. They become your default state without your awareness. As these subtle patterns build up, your brain begins to operate in a constant state of fragmentation. You may find yourself switching between tasks more often, losing focus even during activities you once enjoyed. Your thoughts become shorter, your patience thinner, and your tolerance for boredom almost non-existent. Social media trains the mind to expect continuous stimulation, so when the real world slows down, your brain feels uneasy. You instinctively reach for your phone because it has become both a distraction and a coping mechanism. You may not even remember the moment this habit formed, it simply became automatic. This constant habit of checking your phone begins affecting your memory as well. Studies on digital overload show that the brain becomes less reliant on internal memory when it can offload information to a device. Instead of remembering facts, dates, or even simple details, the brain learns to store less and search more. You become dependent on external tools for storing information, and your working memory weakens. You might notice yourself forgetting conversations, losing track of responsibilities, or feeling mentally foggy. This is not a personal flaw. It's a neurological adaptation to an environment overflowing with information. At the same time, the emotional wiring of your brain undergoes another transformation. Because you are exposed to extreme emotions, online outrage, sadness, excitement, shock, your baseline emotional response begins to shift. Things that once felt meaningful now feel dull. Real-life experiences seem less stimulating than the intensity of online content. You might find yourself feeling bored during activities that used to make you happy, or uninterested in moments that once brought you joy. This emotional flattening occurs because your brain gets accustomed to rapid spikes of emotion, and real life simply cannot compete. Another important transformation occurs in your sense of identity. Social media blurs the line between who you are and how you are perceived. The constant awareness of being what's Devon indirectly shapes behavior. You may act differently when recording, posting, or even planning content. You curate your life in small ways, adjusting your choices based on how they might look online. You start thinking not only about living experiences but also about how to present them. This creates a subtle but powerful psychological shift. Life becomes a performance. Instead of living for yourself, you live for visibility. This performative mindset gradually influences the way you evaluate your own experiences. Moments that are not shared may feel less meaningful, as if they lack validation. You may find yourself taking photos, not because you want to, but because it has become part of the experience. The boundary between memory and documentation begins to blur. Over time, your brain forms a connection between external validation and internal satisfaction, making you feel incomplete without the eyes of an audience. This is not intentional. It is a byproduct of constant exposure to a world where attention equals value. As your identity becomes partially shaped by external perceptions, your mind becomes more sensitive to criticism. A single negative comment can trigger anxiety or self-doubt, even when surrounded by positive feedback. This happens because the brain is designed to prioritize threats, and criticism feels like a threat to your social standing. In the digital world, this response is amplified because the criticism feels public, permanent, and visible to others. Your brain reacts as if you are being judged by an entire tribe, even if only one person left the comment. This heightened sensitivity creates emotional vulnerability, affecting self-esteem over chimie. In addition to emotional vulnerability, another form of rewiring takes place in the brain's reward system. The constant pursuit of validation creates a cycle similar to addiction. The brain begins craving the highs of engagement and feeling restless during the lows. This cycle can make you feel driven to seek more attention, more followers, or more interaction. It can also make you feel disappointed when your efforts didn't produce the results you hoped for. This disappointment is not superficial. It triggers real emotional responses because your brain has linked digital numbers with personal worth. Furthermore, the fragmentation of attention makes it difficult to be present even when you are physically engaged in an activity. Your mind may drift toward what is happening online. You might feel compelled to check your notifications or see what others are doing. This constant mental pull reduces the quality of your experiences. You might be in a room with people you love, but mentally elsewhere, divided between the real moment and the digital world. This split attention diminishes your ability to form deep memories and meaningful connections. Because presence is a requirement for emotional bonding, social media also rewires the way you process time. Because the digital world moves quickly, your internal rhythm begins to adjust. Slow moments feel uncomfortable. The passage of time feels strange, as if everything is moving too fast and too slow at the same time. You may feel overwhelmed by how quickly trends change or by the pressure to keep up. This creates a psychological tension, a constant feeling that you're behind on something even if you're not sure what it is. This tension keeps you engaged with the platforms, seeking updates to reduce the discomfort. Another significant transformation happens in the way you relate to others. While social media promises connection, it often creates distance. Interactions become shorter, less meaningful, and more superficial. You may find yourself feeling lonelier despite being constantly connected. This paradox occurs because digital interactions lack the emotional cues, tones, and subtleties that the brain uses to create feelings of closeness. The brain cannot fully interpret typed messages or emojis the same way it interprets real human signals. As a result, relationships may feel weaker, even when communication happens more frequently. The brain also becomes accustomed to a fast-paced form of socializing, where responses are instant and interactions are brief. This makes real conversations slow, imperfect, unpredictable feel harder. You may feel anxiety in social situations, not because you lack social skills, but because your brain has adapted to a new form of communication. You might overthink what to say, worry about awkward moments, or feel the urge to retreat into the safety of digital space. This shift in social comfort changes the way you form connections and navigate relationships. Perhaps the most profound impact is on your inner voice. Social media fills your mind with so many external opinions that it becomes harder to hear your own thoughts. You see what others believe, what they want, what they criticize, and what they celebrate. Gradually, your own desires and opinions become harder to distinguish from the noise. You may feel uncertain about what you truly want or who you truly are. This makes decision-making more difficult because the mind becomes overloaded with external influence. Despite all of these effects, it's important to understand that the brain is resilient. The same neuroplasticity that allowed social media to rewire your mind also allows you to reshape it. Awareness is the first step. By understanding the mechanisms behind these changes, you regain control. You can choose how to engage, how often, and with what intention. You can rebuild focus, strengthen emotional resilience, and rediscover your authentic identity. Social media is not inherently harmful, but without awareness, it becomes a silent architect of your mind. By stepping back, observing your habits, and reclaiming your attention, you can rewire your brain in a healthier direction. The world may be digital, but your mind is still yours. And ultimately, the journey to reclaim your mental space begins with a simple decision to become conscious of the forces shaping you. Once you understand how your brain is being influenced, you also gain the power to change the narrative. You become the one who decides what shapes your thoughts, your emotions, and your identity. Social media may be designed to capture your attention, but your awareness is stronger than the algorithm. You just have to choose to use it. If you found this eye-opening, imagine what else your mind is hiding from you. Hit the subscribe button, turn on notifications, and join MindDecode HQ for more deep psychology breakdowns that reveal the truth behind your thoughts, your habits, and your behavior. Your mind is your most powerful tool. Let's decode it together.